The Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they've been welcomed to Colombia in South America as they begin their 4-day tour of the nation.
Harry and Meghan were met in the capital, Bogota, by Colombia's Vice President, Francia Marquez, and her husband. And the couple attended a forum on our digital future, where both Harry and Meghan spoke. Take a listen.
And for me, the most important place that I sit in the world right now is as a mother. So I look at it through the lens of what my children, our children, are going to adopt as they get older, and how we can keep them safe, because I do believe all of us agree, despite whatever disparities there are throughout the world, no one contests the fact that we want to keep our children safe.
Typical, it started with, and for me. Of course it did.
Meghan Markle. Anyway, we're joined now by royal broadcaster Helena Shard. Good morning, Helena. Thanks for joining us. Some people have a little bit of an issue with Harry and Meghan talking about online safety and promoting all these sort of good kumbaya values, when actually they have been purveyors of their own misinformation in the past, not least with the Oprah interview, was it 2022?
21, I think.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, this is really turned into the Meghan show, from what I can see. I just, you know, we all want to combat cyberbullying and, you know, want online safety for children. That's admirable. And, you know, people that have a platform, it's great to lend themselves to that. But this is just such a huge PR situation. I just don't know how collaborative it is as well. And what I do know that this is, from my point of view, is hugely damaging, I believe, to our royal family. You know, there's no government input. There's nothing here. Is it the Colombian government that's actually leading everything? We really don't know. And yes, there is such a hypocrisy here with these two. It's the perfect PR. You've got beautiful outfits and great pictures, and it's all incredibly staged. But, you know, when it comes to it, yes, everyone's got this desire to protect their own children, and they want to protect their children. But, you know, what is it that they're doing? Everyone's still confused.
Well, that's the thing. Well, that's the thing, Helena. We're watching it thinking, this is just, I mean, what's going on? What's happening here? There's nothing. They're literally doing nothing. They're walking around, people are taking pictures, but there's no outcome, and they're absolute out-and-out hypocrites. I want to ask you about this particular quote. Prince Harry took a veiled swipe at Elon Musk after the Southport riots, and he says, what happens online transfers to the streets in minutes. I mean, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I mean, Prince Harry catastrophises with everything that we see all the time. Everything's awful, terrible. He thinks everyone's out to get him, and you know, thinks he's the person that should be waving the flag, the Pied Piper, leading everyone on to better things. This is not the case at all. And actually, I just feel that his opinion a lot of the time is quite dangerous. I missed that, in fact, that you just mentioned. I mean, I don't mind. I think the whole thought of, you know, challenging conglomerates with reference to online safety and helping in that way and getting them to put money into their pocket, you know, into research, that's fine if he wants to do that. But I think hitting out and just making these random statements, I don't think he's qualified to do that.
Well, he's catching on the back. Well, he's catching on the back of the Southport riots, isn't he?
He is, and actually, you know, that he's in Colombia, for goodness sake. You know, it's so not safe. You know, what's going on? This is silly. The riots we had here, they're quick, they're over. There was lots of meaning behind it, but it's how can he talk about, you know, these riots? He's not qualified to do that.
Helena, can I?
And he's in Colombia.
About this then, Matthew, Prince Harry's told an audience yesterday what happens online within a matter of minutes transfers to the streets. People are acting on information that isn't true.
Yeah, so it looks like he has weighed into perhaps the biggest political issue of the last few weeks, which is the disorder that we saw on the streets. And he's sort of been absolutely clear. He's broken that royal thing of not commenting on hot topics by commenting commenting on the hottest one of all. And in particular, he's trying to draw attention to the impact of AI, saying he's scared and uncertain about the impact of AI. And then he says it comes down to all of us to be able to spot the true from the fake.
Well, that's hilarious coming from them, isn't it? A little bit.
Some irony there. And also, he's doing it on his tour of Colombia.
Well, this is to make...
But he
do you
won't
not
come
think
here.
that he's doing this to make himself... get some relevance and attention onto him? Because otherwise, who would be interested?
Absolutely. I think he's certainly trying to justify the tour to Colombia so that it distracts from the other sort of shadier aspects of that. I mean, I think it's one thing for him to try and weigh in on a major issue like this. It's another thing to do it when he won't visit this country, because, of course, he's not going to come to his uncle's funeral because he's worried about his security concerns, we understand. So it's quite odd that he won't make this, he's contributing to the national debate, but just not in the nation.
Oh, he's doing it from the safe distance of the very, very safe country of Colombia. And I mean, we don't know who exactly is funding their security in Colombia, but presumably it's not entirely the Colombian government. That wouldn't be a very fair thing of them to put that on the Colombian people, would it? I don't know if they're funding their own security, but surely with all this money that's being made by all of their various brand deals that I'm sure are extremely
Are they making money?
No, I don't think they are, which is probably why they can't afford their
Not sure how much jam Meghan's managed to flog so far.
Anything.
Well, she can't find a managing director or whatever it is for the company because they've got such a horrible staff retention problem. But look, I think that he is we could talk all day about how Prince Harry is a hypocrite, but him wading into a topic like this, and I know that misinformation and that kind of thing is very dear to their heart. They love a bit of censorship. But it's actually quite serious, I think, that him and Meghan are effectively setting themselves up as a kind of parallel court that are involving themselves in British politics from afar, interfering in that way from a huge platform that cannot really be properly disassociated from the royal family. They're still using their Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles. And they're meddling in a way that is disrespectful to the democracy in this country. And I think it's particularly horrifying that I think their judgment is pretty out of touch.
And also,
this is I think it's very dangerous for them to be calling for more censorship.
They're out and out hypocrites, that's what they are, absolutely.
Who's going to listen to people on misinformation when they themselves are guilty of, bending the truth all the time?
I don't think Prince Harry knows the difference between true and fake when he's married to Meghan Markle.
Well, anyway, didn't they brandish the royal family, or somebody in the royal family as pretty much racist, changed it to unconscious bias?
What do you make, Matthew, of this train driver union claiming victory after being handed a bumper pay rise by Labour and Sir Keir Starmer?
Well, I think we needed to get the dispute settled. They got less than they asked for, and it's a 3-year deal, so it means that we hopefully will have a prolonged period of industrial peace on the railways. So I think the deal had to be done, and it should have been done. The Tory government should have sat down with the rail unions. It refused to speak to them, and when the government engaged directly with the rail union, then the dispute has been settled.
But then who's next? Because everyone's now in line, and it seems that anyone who's in hock with the unions is able to ask for these bumper pay rises, and the Labour Party, of course, they're being very popular because they're just handing out money. Well,
I think that the first thing is that none of the people who got what they wanted, so the junior doctors got about a third less than they wanted, and actually it's about the same with the rail drivers. The government, though, you're right, Nana, the government is going to have to make sure that it doesn't appear to be giving in to any public sector pay demands. I think they're going to be tougher with the GPs. It's more complicated because GPs get paid per patient rather than get, the salary increase, but it's how much they give GPs per patient. So I think they need to show some steel, but I think this was the right settlement, and it was substantially less than the train drivers wanted.
Oh, it's also, it's quite, 14.25% is a big pay rise. They're already earning a lot.
It's over 3 years.
It doesn't matter because I think people across the country are struggling. It's their taxes that go to pay for these pay rises. And also the pay rise is no strings attached, so they get to keep these, they call them Spanish practices. Yeah. And one of them is anybody sitting at home right now hearing this and imagining the way that they, operate at work and what they're allowed to do. These train drivers, if they get interrupted when they're on their lunch break by a manager, they get to start their lunch break over again. So if the manager says, hello, good morning, they can start their lunch break all over. And they're already earning much, much more than the average.
60,000 to 69,000.
And the system is, I sympathise with the point about train guards, but, they are keeping our transport system stuck in a rut of inefficiency.
Archaic practices, yeah.
So, I think that I can imagine people being a lot more sympathetic with nurses and maybe even to a degree GPs, but possibly not as much. But train drivers already earn so much that this just looks like greed. And if the Labour Party are going to make this kind of case that, it's going to cost the taxpayer less than the amount of money it would cost the economy if they continue to strike, well, that's just asking for hostage taking, isn't it? That's not a good sort of incentive system to set up.
Everybody's sort of lining up for their pay rise. Victims of the infected blood scandal can receive support through a scheme of payments for life under changes to a multi-billion-pound compensation plan.
And those who were subjected to unethical research will get up to £15,000 extra after the government accepted the majority of recommendations from an independent review into current compensation plans for those treated with contaminated blood products.
Well, we're joined now by Olivia Utley to take us through that. So, Olivia, can you give us a summary of what the government are saying?
Well, there was a worry at the end of the election campaign that the infected blood money would not be paid. The Conservatives committed to paying it back in April, but then, of course, the election was called. Now, the Conservative government before this one accepted almost all of the recommendations from the review, and that committed them to about, the estimate isn't quite clear, but about £10 billion over the lifetime of these infected blood victims and their families. The Labour government has now committed to this as well, and payments will start as soon as the end of the year. Now, 30,000 people were affected by the scandal. 3,000 of those people have very sadly died, and 3,000 people have already come forward to express their interest in the repayment scheme. So this is going to be hugely, hugely expensive for the new government. But obviously, they have no choice other than to go ahead with it. This is one of the worst medical scandals in British history. The payments will be made for the rest of the lives of the victims who were affected themselves, and the lives of the families, immediate family, who were affected by it too. And it's possible that individual victims could receive up to £2 million over the course of their lifetime. There is this separate payment which has been announced today too. Those are for people who were specifically affected by medical research being performed on them without their knowledge. These were mainly boys at a school, a college, who were being treated for haemophilia and were mostly infected with HIV blood products. They will, on top of that money to be paid for the rest of their lives, receive another £15,000 in compensation. Now, some of those boys, who are now quite old men, are not happy about that £15,000 figure at all. They're pleased that the government will start paying out, and they're pleased that they'll be getting their money soon. But some of them say that that £15,000 figure is, frankly, an insult. It'll be really interesting to see how the dust settles on this. It is a really generous payout from the government altogether. I mean, up to £10 billion. That is an enormous figure. But individually, and after so long of waiting, it might feel that some of these victims just aren't getting enough.